Hi guys, and welcome to this tutorial on commas, how and when to use them. And as you can see on the screen that you're looking at now, the use or incorrect use of commas can create a great deal of confusion for a reader. As you can see in this example of "let's eat grandma," slightly threatening, or "let's eat grandma," asking the grandma whether there's going to be time for food. Just another example. A panda eats shoots and leaves. Yeah, and we see a panda and it's snacking on some greenery. However, we add a comma in there. A panda eats shoots and leaves, and suddenly everyone's cuddly friend has become somewhat more sinister as an animal. Okay, so there are a number of different usages for commas. The first one, which is probably the most obvious and the easiest one to remember, is that commas are really a pause in your sentence and to give your reader a breather really in a long sentence. So look at that example. If you want to finish your tea, we could go to the cinema. So there's a slight pause there. Rather than if you want to finish your tea, we could go to the cinema. You'll see my little typo there. There should be a R at the end of your tea. Okay, have a look at the one that's underlined on the screen. Where would you put a comma in that sentence? Okay. Where do you think you need a breather? Okay, hopefully you realise that it would go after tomorrow. If it's nice and sunny tomorrow, we could have a barbecue. See, got that slight breather there. If it's sunny and nice tomorrow, we could have a barbecue. But the comma should go there. Okay, second use. The comma is used to separate a list of items. So, for example, if I want to go and hang out at the park with Steve, Kate, Andrew and Amy, I split up their names with commas. Again, have a look at this example. Where would you put commas? Okay, hopefully you realised it would be after an apple, some milk, comma there, a chocolate bar and a loaf of bread. Excellent. Okay. Third time you might use a comma is if you're introducing a quotation. So here's an example from Of Mice and Men. You might be, in your controlled assessment, writing about Lenny. Lenny said, comma, tell how it's going to be, George. Excuse my bad accent. So it introduces to the reader that there's going to be a quotation. Now, I realise I've made a little bit of an error there because I've put the comma in, but hopefully you would have realised that that should go there. Okay, fourth time you could use the comma is after an introductory word or phrase. So look at this example. Well, you actually bothered to turn up, did you? The well introduces the kind of tone of voice for what I'm about to say, and as such there's a pause after it. So have a look at the one below. Where would you put a comma in that instance? Okay, hopefully you all realised it should have gone after the so. So, I can tell you've done your homework. See how I paused there? Okay, the fifth time you might use it, and this is an instance that some people find quite tricky, is to show the relationship between a word and what we call a noun phrase which follows it. So if you look in my example, my teacher, Mrs. Whelan, makes English tutorials. Now, this information here is really helping out or clarifying the other parts of the sentence, and as such we put commas around it. So just have a look at the one below that's underlined. The footballer Cristiano Ronaldo thinks he is God. The footballer Cristiano Ronaldo thinks he is God. Hopefully we realise that we should have commas here and that we should have another one here, because this information shows the relationship between the rest of the sentence really. Okay, sixth time is when we might want to combine two ideas into a single sentence. Now this is when we've got a dependent idea and one independent idea. Now what we mean by that is that an independent idea can stand alone as a sentence by itself. It's got all the bits you need to make it make sense as a sentence. However, a dependent idea relies on another idea for it to make sense. Now, just to exemplify that in the example, while I did my homework, my sister watched Hollyoaks. Now, my sister watched Hollyoaks would make sense, wouldn't it, as a sentence? But while I did my homework, that wouldn't make sense. It depends on the second part of it. So what I've managed to do is I put a comma in, and it shows that I've got these two ideas together, they're linked together into one sentence. A dependent part and an independent part. Okay, have a look at the example below. Where would you put a comma? Whoops. Now, you didn't see that, did you? But yeah, you did. Before going to the shop, I made a list of what I needed. Before going to the shop, I made a list of what I needed. Because we know I made a list of what I needed is the independent part, but before going to the shop, it doesn't make sense by itself, does it? So that's the dependent part of that sentence. Okay, quick sort of checklist then. We use commas to create a pause, a breather for our readers, to separate items in a list, to introduce a quote, after an introductory word or phrase, to show a relationship between a word and the information that follows, and to combine two ideas into a sentence. Okay, best of luck using commas.